Let's move on. Out this week, the long-awaited Final Fantasy 15 is actually out, and is apparently pretty good.
Yeah.
You start downloading it today. You can play it next week.
Yeah.
It does
Big
take
download.
a really long time to install when you do that download.
I haven't even started my download yet.
Oh,
Did you do
shit.
that
My install,
I'ma do that
I think,
download.
took 10 hours after the download, something like that. Yeah.
Jared, you're playing, right?
Yeah, I'm playing, and I really like it. So it is one of the most Japanese video games I've ever played. It has this marvelous zaniness to
What about
it. and-
Shoaniki?
It's even more Japanese than Shoaniki. And when I
man.
say that, I'm
Don't say
talking.
things.
Yeah, I don't want to sound.
You can't take back.
Don't want to sound ignorant, but it really does reflect a lot of what some of the values and things people get excited about in pop culture in Japan are very on display here. A kind of a combination of an almost like syrupy sentimentality, a beautiful respect for nature and animism, and then fabulous like fashion and star power stuff, and a respect for kind of the tragic and the comedic right side by side, existing in dichotomy.
Hey. Can you just fight monsters?
Yes, and you can fight monsters.
Okay.
It is fun.
And there are chocobos.
There are chocobos. It is delightful. I like the characters. Every time it goes over into syrupy, I'm like, I don't know. And then they'll pull like one perfect beat, and I'll be like, oh, no, I like it. And there's a very, very early on the nose moment where like, hey, guy, you're going to know these guys are friends. And I almost wanted to hate it. And then I'm like, no, that's kind of great. Thank you for doing this. I don't want to spoil that for you. But within the first 10 minutes, when the Final Fantasy 15 credits pop, just like, well, I did not expect that, but you definitely made a statement.
I don't want them to fight.
Oh, the four guys?
Yeah.
They haven't started hating each other in my game yet.
I just want them to be friends.
Yeah, I think they're going to stay friends. I could be wrong, but I think they're going to stay friends.
It's
It's not what I hear for the last half of the game.
Really? Is that what you heard?
Well, it's not. I
No
don't
spoilers
know
here, no
that
spoilers.
this is a spoiler or that's a thing, but I just know the game changes from being an open world game in the end, and I think that might affect how many characters you're playing as. I don't know that for sure. but
Well, I know that
you guys heard about that, right?
I knew that there's
How like
a
they
change.
closed.
Yeah.
You can still go back to
Well, the
open
first half
world.
of the game's open, and then the second half is linear.
And
Yeah.
I don't know any of the story facts, but I'm sure it's something changes there.
Since we're doing no spoilers, I don't want to say anything, but I have a strong feeling based on what you see very early in the game that these characters are still friends.
Yeah, go ahead. You have a question.
We have an email from
Rose for life.
from Neil in Spain.
Is his last name in Spain?
No, he lives in Spain.
Does he stay mainly in the plane?
He did not provide his last name.
Got it. Neil from Spain.
Yeah. And he emailed us at the email address, gamescoop@igm.com, just like you can. And he says, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. I've waited
That's
for
quadruple Fs. The fourth F is silent.
waited for 15 for 8.5 years. Got the game yesterday, loving it so far. The thing is, I know I won't ever get the experience or story promised with Versus 13, and my experience with 15 is sort of different from what I expected when I used to see Versus 13. Don't get me wrong, I think 15 is incredible. My definitive gaudy. So my question is, do you think waiting for such a long time is worth it? Huge expectations can be a bitch sometimes. Changes in game development can be disappointing for fans and gamers who anticipate the title for so long. I know I was disappointed when I heard the story had changed direction from its original draft to what we see today in the final game, although that made me change my chip and start anticipating a different game. So there you have my discussion topic. Until next time, Scoop!
I lost the question in that.
My question is, do you think waiting for such a long time is worth it?
Okay, so
8.5 years.
Final Fantasy 13 and everything it wrought outside of this can fall down the stairs and die.
Whoa. What are you saying now?
Final Fantasy. Okay, so this game began its life as a Final Fantasy 13 spin-off. Final Fantasy 13 Versus, and then eventually became Final Fantasy 15. That's what he's talking about here.
But
So,
wasn't it?
It's versus 13.
yeah, this was
But
Versus
this is
13.
even before 13 was out, though, right?
Yeah.
What?
They announced them at the same time.
Yeah, they announced it
Okay.
at the same time,
Okay.
exactly. So anything from that era in the Final Fantasy universe, 13, 13-2, Lightning Returns, all of those are awful. I really despised all three.
But you played them because you're the strategy guy.
Yeah, so I wrote one of them. Yeah, but 15, I think, benefited in this case from a very long wait because some very fundamental changes happened philosophically and design-wise at Square Enix between the time they started this project and the time that this was released. Final Fantasy XIV's revision, for example, what it started as a pretty lousy MMO and it's become something pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
That took place during that period of time when they kind of stepped back, look at what they've been doing, like, you know what, we might want to change direction. It's probably time to embrace that whole games are fun thing again. And Final Fantasy 15, I believe, reflects that spirit of silliness and optimism that's become much more prevalent in Square's more recent game design. So I think in this case, a wait was a very good thing for 15. And I'm not sure we'd have enjoyed
Do you think
Versus 13.
Skyrim had an influence on it too?
No, not really.
No?
I suspect that I think it's probably a little misleading to say that Final Fantasy 15 has been in development for 8.5 years. I think Final Fantasy 15 was canceled and restarted. I think it's a completely different game. I'm not sure that anything remains from what was built in those first couple of years.
Jared, you were saying that some of the aesthetics seem like 13.
Some of the aesthetics look familiar to me. I wasn't in those studios. I think Justin's raising a very valid point.
Yeah, I'm mainly being.
It was never
I think it was-
officially canceled.
I don't mean like literally nothing survived. I just think I don't think it's like they worked on this game for 8.5 years. I think the project wasn't working and they stopped.
Yeah,
and-
they
and-
threw a bunch out and kept a few good things and kept moving. I think the action-oriented combat, for example, that may have been an original focus and things like that. And they kept refining that, threw a lot of not so good ideas out. You talked about Skyrim. You see some influence there, big monsters, but I think Monster Hunter, the fact that this was 10 years ago, Monster Hunter has an absolute influence of this. It's 4 characters out in the wilderness hunting monsters for their resources and cashing them in, but it's much more Final Fantasy-fied. It's streamlined and exciting and quick, and you don't have to be an expert at every creature to do it, but the creatures are still interesting. So you've got that.
That's why I'm so excited about it. Again, I am going to be waiting 3.5 days for my copy to install, but I'm excited to finally dive into it because Final Fantasy 12 is for me the second greatest Final Fantasy ever made, and
After 6?
after 9.
9. Wow.
Well, 6 is dope too. 12 is a top tier Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
Let me
I
just
love
put
12.
it that way. So I like that real-time-esque combat in 12, and I really like that monster hunting aspect of it. Just go to the board and find what I got to go kill this giant cactar, and then go find him and kill him and turn it in. And my understanding is that that's a big-ish portion of at least the first half of 15.
Oh, it's a big part of the game, and you're not going to have the depth. You're not going to have the depth of the Gambit system.
Yeah, but I mean that's it's like this. It's a different flavor of the same sort of dish.
Also, fishing confirmed.
Oh, fishing confirmed. Absolutely, fishing confirmed. All kinds of fun things. Coleman camping gear, Cup of Noodles advertisements. You want to buy some Cup of Noodles?
Yeah, there's weird sponsored stuff in the game.
Yeah,
There's
there
a lot
are.
of promotional spaces in it.
Yeah,
Is
there really are.
it cup of noodles or cup noodles?
Cup noodles. Cup noodles. I say the advertisement's not working, I guess, but yeah, billboards and roadside stands where you can buy them.
Very familiar with.
I
cup
hear
noodles.
Audi is a big part of Kingsglaive, the movie.
I've heard that too. Caleb was talking about that. But
What is? What?
Audi.
Audi,
really?
Yeah.
They're a car manufacturer.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Lightning was selling fashion products in Japan for a while.
Really?
Yeah. There was some.
2016's terrible.
Which one?
2016.
Oh,
yeah, 2016.
But
is
Final Fantasy
the worst.
15, really, I haven't finished it yet. I haven't had this much fun
It is-
with a Final Fantasy game since 12. It's delightful.
Also good.
Yeah, I've got my copy that's going to take a while to install as well. I'm looking forward to playing it. But it is interesting, this game is long in development. Whether or not it was actively in development, we don't know that whole time. But also in next week we're getting Last Guardian, and that game has been in development as far as we know for like 7 years. There's Duke Nukem Forever, a game that was in development period for what 15 years. for
Yeah, I
that
think it was
game?
14 for Duke Nukem.
So it's like I was thinking like video games like the only modern artistic medium that has that long of like gestation period. Like movies aren't in like active production for years and years and years.
they
Where an
can be.
entire crew is being paid day in and day
Yeah.
out just make to
with the exception of
produce nothing.
Island of Dr. Moreau, which I think stretched for like a year.
Hey, I got one. The third Guns N' Roses album.
The third Guns N'
Chinese
Roses.
Democracy.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
that's
true.
a
It's
long
not the
time.
third one, but it's whatever the case. Chinese Democracy.
There's stuff like The Fall that was in the works for years.
What
But
was
you're
The
right.
Fall?
You're
Yeah.
right that
or
I mean, it's
Confederacy
just-
of Dunces. That's always been
but
forever.
they're not paying a crew for a
Yeah.
decade to
No,
make it.
I was
And
trying to-
novelists work on books for years.
Lord of the Rings was filmed all at the
yeah.
same time.
That's a novelist working on a book is one person, toiling away, not a
Man.
whole team.
In 1999, a little movie called Lord of the Rings was being filmed.
That's
It's
true.
One
it was.
film.
That's one
Yeah.
film.
Can you
In 3
imagine the
parts.
2 towers coming out and being left on that cliffhanger? Then you have to wait a decade or more before you
Yeah.
find out the fate of Frodo.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what
Frodo-
Half-Life is. That's
Frodo
what Half-Life
lives.
is.
Frodo does live.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
I mean, come on.
Does Frodo live?
Well, yeah, in a way.
Well,
I mean,
he lives for a period of time.
yeah. I mean,
Don't we all?
yeah. The Shire, as you told Sam, the Shire was saved, but not for him.
That's right.
But
And then
not
he gets
for
on a
me.
boat to heaven.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, once you're stabbed with a
does.
Morgul blade,
He had the more.
It never goes away.
He had. I have been wounded
pain-
by knife,
he-
sting, and
It
tooth,
was
and a
a
long
year
journey.
and a month since Weathertop when he was
Yeah.
stabbed. He could still feel it.
You can still feel it. That's right. Not to mention Shelob's sting. Not to mention the wound on his finger.
I love that. Like my wife loves those films, and she'd seen them several times. But then when it was like the most recent viewing, where I had to explain to her that they were like going to heaven. She had no idea. She just thought they were like going on like a boat ride vacation or something. And she never realized
A
what they were
boat
doing.
ride vacation.
It's
I
like
that.
it's like half heaven,
ambiguous.
half Hawaii. Like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
little
It's like if
unclear.
heaven was
Yeah,
Hawaii.
Valinor at that point, you're kind of like, well, a lot of weird stuff happens when you sail over the sea. Sometimes you end up a star.
Well,
I mean, that happened to one
says it's a
dude.
gray shore with green forests. and-
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: is that the ocean is pulled up in a spiral shape out of the ocean, and then the
Yeah.
ship goes up that.
Also,
Okay.
that Gandalf dialogue from Return to the King, where he's talking about that, is drawn from Frodo's dream in Fellowship of the Ring, like
I'm
in the
aware of
novels.
this.
So
You didn't
there's
tell me
like a-
this. Tell
yeah,
Damon that.
okay.
Tell Damon's
All right.
wife that.
We're gonna move on, but I wanted
I
to
know.
point out. I wanted to point out that the movie Boyhood took 11 years to make, but that was by design.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, they use the same.
Because
that's
they
because the
filmed
kid.
a
This
scene
is
every
not
year.
Boy-
Boys in the Hood. This is Boyhood.
No,
right?
Did you see it?
Yeah.
I want to see
Boys in
that
the
movie.
Hood
good.
took
It's good.
11 years
It's like,
to film.
I would have been shocked.
Avatar took like what 10 years because he started it right after True Lies, James Cameron, and then he realized, well, the technology I want to make this movie doesn't exist yet, so I'm just gonna twiddle my thumbs
No, he had to let
and
it-
wait for the technology to exist.
He had to let Avatar fester so it could stink that badly
Yeah,
when it
that's
came out.
actually
That's
true.
what it was.
And then
Well, if there's Avatar fans out there, take that up with Jared. You can have Justin and I didn't say anything about that movie.
I'm not very worried about too many people coming out of the woodwork. on
Max
that one.
Scoville's just going to leap from offset and tackle me.
animated movies often take a long time to make. The Simpsons movie was like 9 years in development
Really?
to make to get that movie made. And then Sleeping Beauty, way back in the 50s, took like 8 years to make that movie.
Oh man, that
That's
dragon,
really neat.
that dragon in Sleeping Beauty is so
It's because,
good.
one of the reasons was Walt Disney really wanted realistic animation, so they filmed a lot of the
Yeah.
movie first, and then had animators
Rotoscope
copy
over
it.
it.
Yeah, and then
rotoscoping.
a lot of the animators actually were like kind of pissed off about that because they were like, a real animator can draw a human realistically without copying someone. But anyway,
Animation snobs.
Whoa!
Just watched The Secret of Nim again for a few weeks ago.
Oh,
Man,
yeah.
it was good.
We now interrupt this Game Scoop for an important update.
What's going on?
Today, the director of the Rampage movie, the upcoming Rampage movie, based on the 80s arcade game.
Did you make all of this up?
The director of last year's San Andreas, starring The Rock. He gave an update letting us know what Rampage monsters will be in the movie.
Oh.
It is
One?
all three that you would expect to
Yeah.
be in
Two?
the
So
the
Lizzie,
three movies.
Lizzie is
Yep.
there.
And do you know their other names?
I know, I've forgotten the other
That's
names.
the whole
Lizzie's the only
thing.
one I remember.
That's
Let's see. George. Lizzie,
Yes,
George,
the ape is
and what's the wolf's name? I don't
you remember it?
I don't remember the wolf's name.
Well, Damon and I looked it up earlier, and I do remember it from that moment.
Lizzie and George are the ape.
Lizzie's
and
the Godzilla,
I'll
George
give
is
you
the
the
King
hint.
Kong.
It's the name of another famous movie monster.
It's Ralph? Is that what it is? No.
No.
What is it? What is it? I
think it's
do not
Frank.
remember.
Is it
Frank?
Oh,
Frank
maybe
the
it was
Wolf?
Ralph.
I feel like
That's Ralph. You're right. You're right.
Anyway, there's a Godzilla and a
this
King
is how bad it
Kong.
was. Damon and I read this together earlier.
A Godzilla, and a King Kong, and the wolf. And I don't think the director actually knows their names either. Director Brad Payton says, there's the three, the lizard, the ape, and the wolf. So
That's the quote.
So authentic.
he either doesn't know their names or he doesn't think anyone else knows their
just
names.
doesn't.
Yeah.
I really hope the movie takes place in Des Moines. Like, you destroyed so many cities in that game because it
Yeah.
had like 130
All right,
levels.
You know what? You can just leave Des Moines out of this.
What? No,
Iowa over
I think
here.
Des Moines was an early level.
Des Moines is on the rise.
I'm okay with that. Why not have a disaster
not once
movie set in
Lizzie
Des
gets her
Moines?
hands on it.
Oh man.
Yeah, man, that game had so many levels.
I
Did
love
you ever
that
play it all
game.
the way through?
Yeah, I beat the NES
That
version.
game
I think.
has 4,000 levels
Yeah.
in it. It never ends.
It goes
Yeah.
through Canada.
Yeah, it goes on
Yeah.
forever.
Do you think it'll have nudity, Damon?
I hope so. I was really interested in the fact that I had nudity when I was a kid.
Yeah,
that's
me too.
right.
And if anybody doesn't know this game, it's a classic 80s arcade game where you play the giant monster destroying the city. It's 2D, and then the monsters can like hurt each other, fight each other, and you knock down planes that are attacking you. And then if you lose enough health, you
It's great.
you shrink back down to the human that you transformed from,
Yeah.
and then shuffle off the screen, covering up your private parts. It's
Yep.
great.
You're completely.
So
completely
that's the
nude.
setup for the
Wait, is one of the characters a lady?
yeah one
Yeah,
Lizzie.
the
I
Godzilla
think
is
yeah.
Okay, and then but there's also naked ladies in the apartment buildings.
Well, they're like showering. You know.
That's an important thing you need to know about Rampage
Yeah.
when you're 8.
So that's the setup. That's the setup for the game. Would you like to know the setup for the movie?
no,
Yes, it's set in Des Moines.
This is the director. The director says the story centers on quote a lab that affects these animals and makes them rampage.
Oh, wait.
sure.
So they start as animals in this. They're not starting as people.
Apparently,
So,
so
they're doing
it's-
like the Ninja Turtle thing,
Animal
where
nudity.
like
Yeah.
Splinter's like not a dude, but
And-
he's
or
a
they're-
rat
they're
now.
aliens.
Oh
So,
man,
yeah.
Huh.
I imagine the Rampage fan community is going to be up in arms about that change in.
Oh, that's
You and
Rampage
I?
canon. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. We should write a
Goodness.
letter.
We should.
No,
I'm
we can
gonna-
angrily tweet at the director.
Yes, and The Rock, and The Rock.
Okay,
Wait, is The Rock in this? He's
Yeah.
So not only
Because remember, The Rock was in San Andreas, so
Right.
now
They
he
reunited.
Yeah, they're
But he's
What is
not
Twitter
George.
for if not to shout at people when they make a creative decision you
This
don't
is
like?
great. The
That's
tides
true.
have turned.
That's
This is fantastic.
I love that. It affects these animals and makes them rampage. Just taking the name of the game, it'd be like we're gonna make a Call of Duty. It's about soldiers answering the Call of Duty.
rampaging animals,
Elevator pitch.
much as Smaug rampaged over Lake Town
Yeah, that's
in
right.
The Hobbit,
Yeah.
the prequel to Lord of the Rings.
Or as Ungoliant did.
Oh, and Goliath did also
He's-
rampage,
Yes,
then
and ended up in Mordor.
destroying the
Unfortunately,
trees.
Left spawn of Ungoliant
We have to move
everywhere.
on from
Yeah.
Rampage.
Those little
Most his
spiders.
fury up on the mountainside. Yeah, that's the Balrog.
Yeah, he's supposed to. Yeah, wow.